I was a software development engineer at a travel marketplace, responsible for hotel availability used by search and booking. 3 product teams had built release plans around a streaming interface promised for the quarter. Halfway through implementation, our failure tests showed the streaming design could deliver events out of order after a regional recovery. That could make a sold-out room appear available for several minutes. I concluded we should stop the stream launch and deliver a versioned polling interface first, while redesigning ordering guarantees. I knew teams would be concerned because they had already written client code and publicly committed features that depended on the stream. My objective was to protect booking correctness without surprising our consumers or simply transferring schedule risk to them. Before announcing the decision, I mapped the affected teams, reviewed their integration plans, and held separate 30-minute conversations with each lead. I asked what they had already built, which dates were fixed, what rework my proposal caused, and what evidence they would need to support a change. The concerns were different. Search could adapt fairly easily but feared polling traffic. The mobile team had completed most of its event client and worried about losing 6 weeks of work. The partner connectivity team had a contractual pilot date and said a delay would damage credibility with 2 hotel chains. That last conversation was tense. Their lead said my team was using reliability as cover for poor planning, and initially I became defensive because the ordering issue had only appeared under a rare recovery sequence. I paused and acknowledged that, from their position, the cause didn't change the impact. I shared the failed trace, the customer scenario, and the alternatives I had rejected. Launch with a warning, limit the stream to one region, or delay all consumers. I explained that none prevented stale availability after recovery. I also said clearly that my team owned the cost of changing direction and invited them to challenge the mitigation rather than accept a finished plan. Their feedback changed my proposal in 2 important ways. First, instead of a generic polling endpoint, I added cursor-based incremental reads that preserved most of the event client's processing model. The mobile team could reuse its deserialization and state management code rather than discard it. Second, for the contractual pilot, I proposed a read-only stream containing rate change events, which were idempotent and didn't carry inventory risk, while availability used the safe interface. I verified that split with legal and the partner before committing it. To address search load concern, I modeled peak request volume, added cache headers and jitter guidance, and offered a shared load test. I published a decision record with the failure evidence, options, owners, dates, and unresolved questions. During an open review, I answered questions directly, including why we hadn't found the issue earlier. I explained that our original test covered normal failover but not recovery combined with delayed cross-region replication, and I added that scenario to the release gate. I didn't pretend the earlier plan had been adequate. One engineer continued arguing that we should launch the full stream behind an opt-in flag. Rather than close the debate by authority, I asked him to define a safeguard that prevented an out-of-order inventory event from reaching a booking decision. We tested his sequence number proposal, but it stalled consumers when a region was unavailable. He then agreed it didn't meet the pilot's availability needs and supported the split plan. We delivered the incremental interface in 4 weeks. Search peak traffic stayed 15% below the capacity limit, mobile reused about 70% of its client work, and the partner pilot started on its original date with rate events plus safe availability reads. We recorded no stale availability booking incident. 8 weeks later, we launched the redesigned stream with partition-level ordering and consumer recovery tests. All 3 teams migrated voluntarily within the following quarter. The thing I learned was that transparency about a technical risk is necessary, but trust comes from taking responsibility for the disruption and changing the mitigation when stakeholders reveal costs I haven't understood. If I did it again, I would involve consumer teams in failure mode reviews before promising an interface. In this case, listening turned a blunt cancellation into a safer transition that preserved most of their work and their most important dates.